Hi there, welcome back to part 4. This part will teach you how to fit a reusable nappy to your child. Now there's often the misconception that a reusable nappy goes on just like a disposable. This isn't actually true, mostly because disposable nappies are designed to sit much higher on your child than a reusable one because they have no elastic. So in the vain hope of stopping certain things travelling right up the back, they actually fit rather differently. They also work by forming a vacuum with the gel in the nappies drawing liquid through across that vacuum, which isn't actually the case for a reusable nappy, which works by contact. Okay, so I have a couple of nappies here just to show you how to do this. This is the Bambino Mio Solo. So this is a fairly typical, even slightly generous one size nappy. And I've got one here with snaps just to show you the variation between the snaps over a fitted nappy, so a two-part system compared to an all-in-one. Now obviously any nappy with a tongue like this needs stuffing first. Some people put these inside here, but then you've got microfiber against the skin, which isn't something you want. So we'll just stuff that. If you were going to boost it, you'd lay something like a bamboo, cotton or hemp inside here to complement the microfiber, which would then be microfiber closest to the child and the booster furthest back at the capacity. Okay, so with these, one of the reasons they most often leak is actually because that absorbency I just stuffed inside actually only sits here. So if that's only that wide and sits there, this section here actually has no absorbency in it. So we need to fit it in a way that it's not like this. If you pull it out around the buttocks when it's on your child, this section has no absorbency. Your child squishes their legs together and you've actually made a little funnel running everything down to these edges where there's nothing to catch it. Okay, so the alternative is the one I'm going to show you how to fit it now so this doesn't happen. So when you're fitting your child, first step, lay them on top and pull it down a bit as if to give them a builder's bum. Okay, so bring it down that bit lower. Flip this up in between the legs. Now on a small child, you will find this rise setting is too high. So just as an example, we're going to drop this down to the lowest rise setting now because our imaginary child is only just into one size nappies and needs it smaller. I will note at this point, on this nappy, that's the shortest rise. On this one, which is a close parent wrap, similar size system to their all in two pop-ins, they actually have an extra rise snap, so their shortest rise is actually a little smaller than the one on the standard birth potty nappies. So the equivalent size on this particular system is actually one up from the bottom, so you've still got those extra snaps there. Worth checking, which is when you have if you're using a different system, whether they have an extra wide snap and whether that makes them go smaller than the average or possibly bigger than the average if it's a larger nappy or wrap in the first place. Okay, so push this up. When you get to here, you want this bit to be flat and smooth against your child's tummy. There's only one or two brands that actually have elastic across the front, most don't, so you want this flat and smooth. On a very small child, you'll possibly be tucking this almost underneath them right round to the back. Okay, so get that flat and smooth. Make sure this bit is down inside and smooth here because you don't want that lining sticking up onto the top and causing a leak by touching the vest or something like that. Okay, now on solos you always have to use this side first because of the way the Velcro was done. It might be different on other nappies and certainly if you're doing snaps. So the next step is take this, pull it up towards your baby's head. And what that's doing is it's actually pulling that elastic that we dropped low up into their natural waist. And then gently bring it up and over the hip and just fasten it loosely for now onto here. So it's brought the nappy up and over. Same on the other side, flat and smooth there. Bring this up again and over. So now you'll have popped that piece of back elastic up into the natural waist with the two hip bones sat here and here and here and here. Belly button up here, and as long as that piece of back elastic ends up under a little bit of tension, most of your poos should finish up there. Sorry, not your poos, their poos, but most of the poos should be found just there instead of all the way up there. However, before we go on to that, so you've done up your 2 bits of Velcro. Next step, if you bring your hand down here, this one over to this leg, we mentioned about this bit having no absorbency because it's tucked over there, because that's how wide the insert is. What you need to do, starting just below the rise snaps, take this piece of elastic and pop it in to the groin crease. You're actually going to be tucking it right underneath to do so. Now the groin crease is the little piece with no fat on it, the little skinny bit right inside there somewhere on some babies. Very gently with your fingers, you're just going to release the leg fat from under that elastic so it doesn't get stuck under the elastic. If you keep doing that all the way around, eventually you'll get to the point where you feel like you have to lift this leg to carry on. Do so, lift the leg, and then use this finger to just release the slack you've made by bringing the elastic round up and over the buttock to make some space. You will probably see this pop up and over the top of their hip there. Do the same on the other side, so swap hands, leg elastics leg, tucking it all the way in till you have to lift the leg, release it around, and then you'll notice that suddenly this becomes quite gappy in most cases because you've just put all that elastic round and made some extra space here. So just briefly open the Velcro, pull it over loose. It will probably go a little further over now. Same again. Now if your child actually has enough space between the top of the thigh and their hip to fit all of this in, that means they're big enough for this nappy. If however they're not, and as you can see on other nappies, the amount of space required varies just by the design. It's not a one size thing necessarily, it's a question of the design. If not, there is a way of making it fit a little better so that this doesn't rub on the top of the thigh. For a smaller baby, instead of putting the Velcro flat and straight, you can actually bring it up and over and angle it downwards. What this does is you've just brought the pressure of where that nappy does up. Instead of it being up here, you brought it down to here. That might help some babies that are close to being big enough cope with the nappy, and then as they grow over the days, you'll find you start doing more and more of this till they end up fitting it normally. But when you finish your fit, you will find these leg elastics will be tucked in there, which is effectively causing a funnel, forcing all the liquid into the absorbency in the middle and preventing those little leaks at the legs. And because this back elastic will be under a little bit of a tension, but not necessarily crazy tight, that will stop the poo escaping at the back. The mistake a lot of people make is, because they don't know about the legs and they get leg leaks, they make this as tight as possible, because did you see it pulled on the leg by doing so, in the hope that that will stop the leaks. Then they find their baby gets little rubs on the hip bones and up the back and on the fleshy bits, perhaps because it's sitting too high because they're also too small for the nappy, but also because it's gone too tight, so there's friction rubbing on the soft skin there, and then they may or may not find it solves the leg leaks. But by actually fixing the leg leak, you don't need to rely on the waist to do all the work. You should be able to worm, I don't mean force your way in because it's really hard, and I don't mean just straight in and out. You should be able to just slide your fingers in here a bit, because the front shouldn't have to be so tight as long as this has been fitted to be under good tension. Now the only difference that you would do with a two-parter is you do this nappy up first, same with a fitted flat nappy or anything like that. You do this piece up first, and then you'd fit this. You'd make sure that row of elastic there was just sitting nicely above that one, and this is the one that you want to do the fitting on, this outer. So make sure that that's in the natural waist. You still pull up and over and fasten to the nearest snap. Go looser rather than tighter to start with. So same again. And then even as this one, as on that one, even though it's got the gussets, come back and it's the gusset, the inner layer that you want to put in, because between that gusset and that piece, you actually have the same effect that this and this do with tucking that in. It's a similar idea, it's just they've done it for you here. So tuck that in under the edge of the nappy, same again till you lift the leg, release the slack around. Same on the other side, tuck it in, bring it round, lift the leg, release the snap, go back and see what you can do with the snaps at the top. Now on wraps like this one, where the snaps are nicely placed close together, it's quite a neat design, you will find you have lots of choices in the snaps. Sometimes your baby may need a different one each side. Really hard to accept. I struggle with doing my nappies up unevenly, but Sometimes that's just the stage they're at and you need to do it to make it fit. You just do it quickly, get them dressed and pretend you hadn't noticed. And that will do. But exactly the same other ways. Make sure this is in the natural waist crease, these are into the natural groin creases, and that it's fitting well. The way you tell if this is set to the right rise, this needs to be below the belly button. These should be just sat on the hips. Now if trying to get this up, you find it doesn't quite clear the top of the thigh, so the thigh will come out here, the little fleshy bit in there. This should just want to rise over the top. Now if your baby's on too small a rise, you might find you can't quite lift that up and over. If it's set too big, what you often happen is you fit it, and then not long after wearing it, they start moving down, and it either starts moving down, you get leaks under the legs, little half moons at the bottom, or you'll get shooting at the back because this has ended up too big because it was perhaps done up on the little chubby bit above or below the natural waist, and then it slipped down to the waist and rubbing and moving and things like that. So often leaks tend to only have two causes: fit, where either the nappy is the wrong size or you haven't managed to correctly fit it to your child. Most nappies will fit most children, but some children will fit some nappies better than others. Maybe they have particularly tall thighs, small pelvis, something like that. Different things that you can require a slightly different design. The other reason that cause leaks is that the materials, which we discussed in the first part, are either the wrong type or the wrong order. Majority of leaks are one of those two things. The least likely cause of the leak is actually that your PUL has failed and is starting to delaminate. Once we've religiously fitting every nappy correctly and have looked into the science behind the materials and whether it's the right way around, if you're still getting leaks, that's when we can start looking at whether a nappy has failed or not. Okay, so we'll go to questions now for this part, and then the final part of our class.